Hey, Emily,
Hey, Stephanie.
you want to do a podcast?
Absolutely.
Welcome to Cycle Chats, a podcast to destigmatize what it means to be a woman. This is episode 18, The Wellness Gypsy, where we speak with a passionate spiritual coach, energy healer, yoga teacher, space holder, traveler, and online facilitator here to share her passion and help guide you to complete alignment with yourself. The Wellness Gypsy herself, Dana Maternick. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. This is really interesting work that both Stephanie and I think, have a lot of questions about. My husband has been waiting for you to come on the podcast. He was so excited when I told him that I got a Reiki healer. He was like, oh my God. So he's been waiting for this one. So I need to know how you got into this field in the first place.
It's so weird because I think this is how most people are too, is you don't really know specifically that turning point that draws you, but it's just you feel pulled to it. And I've always been I guess more open-minded to spirituality and those different things for such a long time. It was kind of one of those things that it's not very big or talked about, or it's still a little bit, it's a very small community at this point, I feel like, compared to the vast majority of everything else. And so it's one of those things that unless you know people or something like that are already into those things, you don't really connect with those things as much, because that's not how society is raised. That's not how society works right now. So I think it was just this pull where I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is really opened me up. I had been journaling and stuff like that. And then one thing led to the next. And I started talking to, other people that were in that community. And then it's now that's just my community. Whatever you do, you're attracted to it and they're attracted to you. So it's energy.
I love that. Yes, that is what it is. It's energy. We're all energy. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. There is energy constantly running through your body. I'm assuming people don't even know what Reiki is. I know a little bit about it because I know some of the chakra ideas from me going to grad school and doing acting. So can you explain what Reiki actually is and what the chakras are?
Yeah, for sure. So Reiki is a form of energy healing that the energy is channeled through the palms of the facilitator, and it just works on all the different chakras throughout the body. It's funny, I didn't actually know what Reiki was before I did my facilitator training. It was another thing that I was like, oh, I really want to do this, but I had no idea what it was. I had never had it done on me or anything like that. But yeah, it's just a form of energy healing. It's a very gentle, non-invasive form that just works with your aura of the client that you're working on. And yeah, the facilitator just taps into the energy of that space that the client is in. Most of the healing that I do is distant based on everything that is happening. And actually, when I did my facilitator training, it was also all done through Zoom. So that's just how I learned. And that's just what I have continued to do. And yeah, I just tap into the energy of the space that the person is in and really just let my intuition guide me on their healing.
Is there, because recently I was doing my own research on it and I'm watching this girl on YouTube who you get different levels of degrees with it. Is that how becoming kind of a Reiki master, is that you have to take different steps to reach that?
Yeah, so I have my level 1 and 2. So there's levels 1, 2, and then 3, which is a Reiki master. And really the difference between them is you get more symbols. So these symbols are things that you can use, motions that you do with your hands that can help focus on specific things. So I have 3 symbols. I have a distance symbol, which I do with my distance healings. And then there's 2 other symbols that are just they all have their own specific properties. So the more advanced you go, the more symbols you get. And yeah, I'm certified with Holy Fire Reiki too, but there are other forms of Reiki healing as well.
Do you ever find that in moments of distress, well, not even just distress, I don't want to say Reiki's only for if you're having problems, but do you find you utilize that healing as part of your daily practice with wellness in yourself?
I've definitely been using it more recently. I think at first, when I was first certified and learned more about it and stuff like that, I wouldn't say uncomfortable to do it to myself, but it was just kind of I don't know, it's just like different, right? It's just like a new thing. And so I think I wanted to get experience facilitating with other people and doing healing on other people. And then I've definitely noticed, like, I do it a lot when I can't sleep. I'll do some self Reiki and it's just like instantly out. Yeah. So it really just depends on the situation, but I'm definitely utilizing it a lot more. And no, it's not just for if you're like in distress or anything like that. Like, it's really just a way to not just allow yourself to relax, but to open yourself up, and also to, I don't want to say like trigger your intuition, but just like make it more alive, I guess.
Were you always attuned to other people's energies growing up? Like, I'm just so curious about how people sometimes, like psychic mediums, all of these things, how they kind of get a taste for this. Is it just like inside of you and you're just humming with it? Like, I'm just so curious. I find it very intriguing.
I feel like we all have the ability to tap into these abilities. Like, we all have these abilities is what I personally believe, but you definitely have to trust and open yourself up to believing in them. And I've always, like, since I was young, I was always referred to as very sensitive. Any situation, I would just always, like, everything, I would just feel so deeply, and with other people, and just the way that I interacted and all these different things. And so I guess it kind of all, like, one thing led to the next. So yeah, I would say, like, I've always been very intuitive to how people feel. And that's always, I've always really picked up on other people's energies. But when I was younger, I didn't really understand what that was. Obviously, I didn't know what energy was, right? But I would definitely say for a very, very long time, as long as I can remember, I've always felt like I was more of a feeler and could really kind of, I don't know, feel out other people's energies and what was going on. Yeah.
What a blessing that is when you get older, because I always was told, you're so sensitive. And then as I started to get older, I was like, no, I've been pretty right about some stuff. And I feel like as we start to attune into it more, you ever walked into let's say a party way back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth because COVID, but like you walk into a place and you just feel off. You're like, whoa, something's going on here. Anytime I've ever trusted myself to leave that environment and be like, this is just not for me, something has happened, whatever it was. And I was like, I was supposed to be there. That's crazy. Or like if I've stayed against my better will and something happened, I was like, this is what I was trying to avoid. So I think, yes, we all have that ability to. And I think a lot of people will be like, oh, hindsight 2020. I think if you can check in with yourself before you do things, you're going to save yourself a lot of time in situations you don't want to be in.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's crazy, like what you're saying there, these situations, if you trust that initial instinct, which people are very disconnected with that initial instinct, that gut instinct, yeah, it would save you from a lot of situations. And your intuition's always right. It knows.
What's the biggest blockage you find people come to you with?
I think a lot of people are unsure of what is actually going on for them. It's just more like a weight that they feel or a heaviness. But I feel that a lot of people are very closed off in their heart and in like their root area, like their hips and stuff like that. Typically when I'm working on people, those are the areas that I'm just very drawn to. And I just feel that in my personal experience and in life in general, it's like those are the two things that we are always activated, like the grounding, the root chakra. It's like if that isn't in balance, that causes a lot of more things to be thrown off. And same with your heart chakra. When your heart chakra is all closed off, it's not just like closed off to love and all these things, but also closed off to experiences and actually fully like experiencing these emotions and joy and fulfillment and like all these different things. So yeah, those are probably the two areas that I feel like people struggle with the most, but without necessarily recognizing that is where they're struggling.
How do you fix it? How do you help these people unblock it?
I mean, if I'm using Reiki as that, the Reiki energy is always drawn to that part that needs healing. If I don't recognize it personally, it's always drawn to that part. And that's just how the Reiki energy works. But otherwise, I will specifically work on that area and direct my hands to that specific area and just like visualize it. But then, there's so many different ways of shifting that. And same with like coaching and wellness coaching and stuff like that. I've recently actually added a service, which is Reiki and Coaching, because I feel like both of them they go so hand in hand. And, the Reiki is good to open those things up for the people that aren't necessarily ready to dive deeper into, shadow work and all these different things. But if you really want to understand the root of the issue, you have to do the other work. You have to be journaling and doing shadow work and really understanding the root of why these things are imbalanced. So yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways that I like kind of guide people through these experiences and situations. Just kind of depends on the person and what they're open to.
And that's, I think a lot of people aren't open to alternative healing because maybe they're afraid of thinking, oh, then everything that I knew was wrong. But it's not that necessarily there's like a wrong way of doing stuff. It's just a different way of doing it. Something that came into my head while you were speaking was it's got to be draining when you're done doing a session with someone, because I just know from experience when I'm in an environment where I am like, whoa, gotta get out of here. I am like hyper aware of what's going on and I'm feeling very odd. It's a little bit exhausting when you get out of it. So how do you navigate that when you're done with maybe more of an intense session with someone?
It's definitely energy draining for sure. I really recognizing the past couple of years that I've had to, like, I've more just gotten specifically into coaching, like Reiki healing and stuff like that last year. But with anything, I've really started to recognize that I need to give myself time and space, not only between clients, but also before sessions and stuff like that as well, to just kind of like, I guess, like tap into a more like open energy and like kind of not stepping out of my own energy, because like that's part of the healing, but creating a bit of separation between myself and my life experiences and my personal life and all these different things, bringing separation to that. And then also whoever that client is, tapping into that. Yeah, it can be hard sometimes. And there's been times where I've done too many, and really at the end of the day, it's like, okay, my cup is empty.
It's like an emotional burnout. It's draining.
Yeah, it is. And it's crazy because it's like those things you enjoy doing and you enjoy facilitating, and you don't realize in the moment that it's draining, but it's like at the end of the day or even a couple days later, and you're like, why do I feel so exhausted? And then you look at what you did and you're like, okay, I did this. I worked with this person and this person and this person. And like, I'm taking on all their energy, and I'm not making sure that I'm okay too.
It's like creating boundaries. We talked to a couple women before where they talk about boundaries a lot, and somebody brought up energetic boundaries. And that was something that I just never like realized was a thing. And then when I started putting that into practice, I'm like, oh, wow, that makes sense why I'm so just wiped after hanging out with this person, or whatever the case may be, is because I'm not drawing that energetic boundary to say, I'm not good within my sphere and aura. I cannot help you with whatever's going on. I got to take care of me, and then I can come take care of you. But it's drawing that energetic boundary so that, giving yourself time before a session or in between. I think as women, my mom and I were just talking about this. She said, God, some days I just want to rest. I'm tired and I don't want to do anything. And I feel guilty for taking a break. She goes, what is that? And I said, because as women, we are told that we have to do all of these things, like in order for us to be something or attain some sort of a goal, we've got to work. Whereas I feel, and this is a very general statement I'm making, but I feel with men, it's like, oh, they've been working hard, they deserve the day to rest. But with women, it's like, what'd you do? Clean the house all day? Like, that's exhausting. It's tired. My mom's like, I'm on my hands and I'm sweating my I was gonna say boobs off. I don't know. She's like, it's it's a lot. But that's the thing, right? Is that I think as women we just have this sense of like guilt, like if we don't give ourselves time. But once we settle into that energy that we have, that calmness, we realize how powerful and how healing doing nothing is. And I don't know that many people understand that sometimes you have to do nothing but just be, to completely recharge that tank.
Oh, and it's so hard to do. Like, even when I say I'm going to do completely nothing, I'm like crafting in the kitchen. I'm like, well, this is fun. This is like easy. Like, this is not mentally draining, but at the same time, that's still not doing nothing. It's so hard to like set those limits with yourself and like actually just allow yourself to do nothing. Allow yourself to just be in your own energy, in your own space, and not have anything to do.
The other day, my husband came home. He had to get something from work, and he was sitting outside. He's like, I just want to sit outside. Do you want to join me? I was like, of course. So we're like sitting outside. It's probably 5-10 minutes. And I get up and he's like, where are you going? I was like, well, I have to go do some stuff. He was like, no. Let's just like sit outside. let's just sit outside. And we just sat outside, and like we ended up having a really nice like conversation, and it was just a pause, and it was delightful and so necessary. Because, you know, even though if you don't truly believe in Reiki or spirituality, whatever it may be, you have to believe in the science behind energy. And we are energy. Human beings are energy. So Steph and I are both actors, and when you're on stage and you are with a scene partner or you're giving a monologue yourself, you are pouring every bit of energy, emotion into that moment. So afterwards, you are drained. You're done. If you are like giving everything you got, you're hungry after because you've burned so many calories. I mean, it's just like, it's this crazy thing. And it's this really big dichotomy between actors and like sports, you know, but like we are athletes. I say that all the time. I'm a teacher too. And I say that to my acting students. I'm like, you are an athlete. You have to prep your body for the work that you are about to do, because it's strenuous because of the energy that we are and the emotions that we're giving. So allowing yourself that time is huge. And that's I think like self-love, that's self-acceptance, that's giving yourself an okay. And like Steph was saying, as women, it's really hard to do that sometimes. Like you just are constantly, if you're like me, you are constantly on the hamster wheel, and it's really hard to get off once that wheel's going.
I do find too, it's like once you're on that, like I go through pretty big like highs and lows when it comes to how productive I am, how inspired I am, like how motivated I am to do these things. And I always find that once I'm in that like motivated headspace, I'm like, well, I got to just do it now. Like I got to keep going and going and going, because you know what happens when I lose that motivation or that inspiration or whatever it is. And then, well, now I have to, you know, take more time. And it's like, well, I should just do it now. But at the same time, it can be those times when you overdo it that you also lose that, and you lose that inspiration and that motivation and drive and whatever. Like it's just a cycle.
A very vicious cycle.
Well, it's like an inspirational burnout. I mean, we get these key words that I notice keep getting brought up, but I think these are the connecting factors, right? I think, and also creative minds tend to go through those extreme highs and lows. That resonates with me, because I have these moments where I'm like, oh, I'm being super creative. I'm going to start 15 projects right now, all of them right now. And then I'm like 2 projects in and I'm like, why did I buy all of these crafting supplies? I'm only going to use one thing. You know, it's allowing yourself the grace. It's another word that comes up, right? Giving yourself grace, being with grace, and realizing that inspiration, I don't think ever really goes away. I think it just lies dormant in our bodies, and how we reactivate it. I mean, I reactivate it with copious amounts of coffee, which I read on your website. You are also a caffeine queen. And I'm like, fantastic. She gets it. I think allowing yourself, letting inspiration sometimes take a break too. Because I feel that we're the little kids, right? We're the 5-year-olds, mommy, and inspiration is mommy or daddy. And they're like, mommy needs 5 minutes to just be alone in the shower and close her eyes with hot water running on her, right? She didn't go away. She's just in the other room right now taking a break. And when she comes back, she can pick you up and piggyback ride you around the house. And it'll be so much fun. Mommy just needs a little breather time. That's my, I think, whole take on it. I don't think it ever goes away. It's just taking a shower in the other room.
Taking that shower is so monumental and huge. Like the inspiration lies dormant, right? As you're saying, but it's also being fueled up again if you give yourself that time. So you had an idea. Okay. So it's like planting a flower outside. The seed isn't going to just burst into this plant. It first needs to be watered. It needs the time. And then eventually whatever plant comes out and it's ready to make. So that's when the idea has come. But as we keep talking to all of you amazing women, it's the idea of just getting to the end of the journey and not filling in the moments of the journey. But sometimes the moments of the journey can be the quiet ones where you're like, yep, I need that 5 minutes. Thanks so much. I appreciate you. I'll be back. And that's beautiful. That's knowing yourself, and that's giving yourself everything. That is fulfillment right there.
You said something interesting a while back, Emily, so I'm going to track all the way back. You said something about being a believer. So this question is for Dana. Reiki is one of those things, I know it well, but when you bring it up with certain people, they just want to fight with you about it. And you're like, listen, buddy, you can have your beliefs and I can have mine. So have you ever come across someone who really was not a believer, and did you somehow present it to them in a way that they've shifted and now they are?
My parents are like totally anti energy healing. Like they don't believe in any of it. They think I'm whack sometimes. But I have done sessions on people that it's not that they aren't believers, but they just don't see how it could help them. So they understand energy healing a little bit, like very, very baseline, but they don't feel that it would really help them or benefit them. And it's something that they had never tried before. And so I have had a few people that were kind of in that area with the energy healing. And I wouldn't say that now they're fully a believer, but the response was how open they felt to it and more of like a feeling that they got from it. So more of like that feeling held, or like you were getting a hug or something like that, like feeling what the energy healing feels like without recognizing that that's the energy healing, if that makes sense.
It does. It absolutely does. And because you seem very, like, if somebody came to you and was like, I don't really believe in this, you'd be like, all right, well, that's cool. That's your opinion. You seem very calm about it. Are you typically like that just in general? Have you always been a very relaxed person, or was that something that you gained through your own spiritual journey?
Yeah, I guess for the most part, I've always been pretty chill. I guess as of the past few years, I have definitely kind of gotten more in that space, because in the past, I have a fitness background and I competed in fitness competitions and stuff like that. And so I have a very goal-driven, very like structured way of doing things. And even since I was three to like 18, most of those years were competitive dance. So all my life, I've always been like having routine, a schedule, like all these different things. So it's definitely been something that I've really had to just allow myself to have that mental space. And I don't even know years anymore, a couple of years ago, I did my yoga teacher training. When I was traveling, I was in India and I did my yoga teacher training there. And I feel like that at that point, I was like, okay, I was already kind of like very kind of free spirit. Like that's how a lot of people recognize me, as very free spirited. And like when I went traveling and then I did this yoga teacher training, and I think that was also another big shift in opening up, and just like my whole mindset is just go with the flow. Like with everything, it's just like just go with the flow. And you know, it's sometimes it's really, really hard, because you're like, but if I do this and then I do this, like, you know, point A and point B, then it will all work out and like everything will go good and all these different things. So I definitely have that part from the past of the structure and stuff like that I'm still really working at, just letting go and trying to just be more go with the flow. But for the most part, pretty chill.
I always say that we have certain guests that come on where you can just feel their aura, and yours is very calm and relaxing. So I can imagine the people that you work with would tend to feel that same too, which I think is important for us to have, because if you're constantly in this state of emergency, you can't think, you have brain fog, you're nervous about everything. But again, that sense of just checking in. How am I today? Where do I feel a little blocked up? Like, where can I release a little bit? You start to just breathe into this, what you said, go with the flow. I just talked to a woman a couple hours ago, and she talked about that, like being in your flow. And all of a sudden, it's like a light bulb goes off. You're like, oh, that's what being present is. But being present has this scary thing to it. It's like a goal, and you have to be present. But with being in a flow, you can kind of live past, present, future, and you just kind of twinkle yourself along the timeline, and it feels more chill and more attainable. Being in the flow, I think that's got to be the connection here, is just how do we keep ourselves in the flow, and what can we do to achieve that?
I think it really comes down to being present with yourself and being intentional too with who you surround yourself with and what you consume. It's something that you have to continuously work on. And I think also I've really recognized for myself, if I am actually living in the flow, I am allowing what I call play, which is like letting my inner child connect with, like letting my inner child run free, basically. So doing things that, you know, maybe aren't adult like, whatever, you know, like crafting and like things like that maybe I would do when I was younger or whatever, and like allowing those things, or even just dancing around the house or whatever, allowing yourself to do those things that bring you that joy and that fulfillment. And that also, I mean, I can't say this is for everybody because we all have different childhood experiences, but I feel like as children, we live in flow. Like that's just what we do. We are free. We run around. Maybe your parents are like, okay, go outside. You can spend the day outside and play outside. Like we have so much freedom. And then as we grow up and we have these responsibilities, it's always like, it's like black or white, we had that freedom as a child. And now it's like, now we have to adult and we have to do all these things and we need all this structure and we need all this and all that. And that's fine, but you have to still allow yourself that freedom and that flow and that just like footloose and fancy kind of mentality.
That's a good answer. I like that. I want to answer too, because I don't know. I want to answer too in the moment. I think checking in with yourself is huge. It's going off of what you were saying, Dana. That's the key. That is the key, to be in tune with yourself enough to be like, what does Emily, Dana, or Stephanie need today in this moment? Great. I'm going to give it to her. Not going, what does future Emily need, or future Stephanie, or like, let them worry about it. Who knows what can happen in 5 minutes? Just give yourself what you need in the moment, because a lot of us don't listen to ourselves and we're just constantly striving to go forward. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect and that I don't, do that constantly, but it is really making sure that you're doing everything in your power to be as connected with yourself as possible, I think.
I also think people have a tendency not to want to check in because they're afraid of what they might find, which I oftentimes feel is this sense of unhappiness that they have to face, and realizing there is work to be done in order to change this. Because Dana, you said something, kind of towards the beginning of this, is that while this isn't like a magical healing thing, you have to do a little bit of work. You got to dig a little bit. You have to be willing to accept some of the ugly, so to speak, that may come from it. But through that, you can create something beautiful. I always like to think of as a certain type of Chinese pottery that when it breaks, they put it back together with gold and they create this beautiful new piece of pottery. And so it's not broken, it's just reshaped now. It's a little bit different. It's got some unique little designs on it. And I think that that's something we forget, is like checking in with yourself might not be the most comfortable thing in the world sometimes, but it is necessary if you want to start making changes to release those blockages.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are afraid of. And I think that's also why people live very busy lives, is because they are afraid of what they're going to do when they don't have anything to do. I kind of joke around with my dad sometimes because my dad's a very hard worker and he works long days and he runs his own business and all this stuff. But I don't ever see him retiring. His dad's still working and his dad's 84 or something like that. He's still working. And I just feel like it's like, in some ways, I kind of feel this, like, I don't want to say like pressure to work hard. Like, it's not that I don't work hard, but work the same intensity, I guess, or workload or whatever it is. And we kind of have this back and forth, not debate, but we just comes up in conversation where, because I've worked with a few different business coaches and one of the things that comes up a lot is working smarter, giving yourself time, and you can still make a living and not work even 8-hour days. You can literally create your life around the workload that you want and make it work, and everything will fall into place. And I think it's hard when you have grown up in an environment where it's very much like work, and to try and, like, I guess, embody the sense of space in a way for myself and my business and all these things is hard. It's really hard because I feel like there are some expectations, whether there are or there aren't. I know I'm putting expectations on myself by just thinking that there are expectations, but yeah, it's hard.
You touched on a topic that I have now been talking about much more recently, and that's the idea of this new generational gap between what our parents have taught us and what we are now growing up with as millennial women and men. we were taught to do that thing, right? Work, 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 get the 401k, get the pension, all that good stuff. Work, 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 9 to 5, all that good stuff. But we're now in a place where some of us are not willing to follow that same path. I'm going to take it straight from Gilmore Girls. We were put on the conveyor belt of life, and some of us now want to get off the conveyor belt. So it takes a lot of guts to do that. And unfortunately, society shames a lot of people that do that. And parents of that generation do as well, without meaning to, because that's what they were taught. So now, since we're breaking away, we still live in a society where people are saying, no, be lawyers, doctors, all of this stuff that is attainable, I'm saying in quotations, teachers, all of these careers. And while that is absolutely lovely, and we need doctors, lawyers, teachers, all of those things, we also need artists, people that are willing to do the path that they weren't told to go down, the other path, because that's what keeps everybody in balance. So I think society needs to change enough where they can say, okay, so how do we pay those people a living wage? How do we make sure that they're taken care of? Because right now, the only people that are getting paid big bucks are those lawyers, doctors, teachers, but even teachers deserve way more money. I'm a teacher, I totally know. But we need to find a way to create a bit more balance, because it seems like those people are getting all the privileges. And then the people that have taken the other path are like trying to keep their head above the water. And that's not fair. And for women, it's way more not fair.
Well, everything that we do, I'm sure, Dana, I'm sure you've gotten this. People are like, oh, what a cute hobby that you have. Has that something that...
Yeah. No, people don't take it seriously.
Oh, I love that one. That's insane. You're like, no, this is my job. This is my job. Like, this is what I do. I don't know. I think, like, how do you combat that when somebody comes at you with that viewpoint?
Honestly, you can't change. It's hard to change their mind, because their mind is built, and that's just what they're built into. You just have to be like, that's okay. I'm making this work for myself. And, everyone can do something different for business. Recently, I also just started soap and candle business. So it's like more crafting and stuff like that. And even that, like, I'll be honest, like both of the things that I'm doing right now, like I haven't gotten to a place yet where I am making a full-time income. And that's still something that I'm working towards and getting there. But anything that you do, any passion that you have, any desire that you have, if you have a strong enough passion, strong enough desire to be successful, you will make it work. You will be successful. And like, I'm not a money hungry person. And of course we need money to live and survive and all these things, but I way rather not work a corporate job and make less money, but be much happier doing something that I am truly passionate about and enjoy and love, than slaving away for however many years and then retiring. And, like I know those are two different mindsets that people have, but that side of things is like not me. And I want to do something that lights me up. And I think a lot of people don't see that is a possibility in business. It's like, well, I'm just working to make money. But do you enjoy your work, or are you literally just working to make money and pay the bills? And I think some people don't care. Some people will just go to work, and that's just how it is. But I think there are people out there that hate what they do and want to do something else, but just don't see that it is a possibility.
As I work my 45-hour plus job a week and then do this on the side, and I'm like, God, one day I'm gonna break. I can feel it.
Yes, but that is just temporary. This is forever. You can't ever leave me, Stephanie. But Dana, what you were saying is, yeah, I mean, the idea of choosing your happiness. And people should be, this society, our world, I think that people should be given something for choosing happiness, like just a little something. Here you go. You chose happiness. Here's a living wage. You can now live. You're okay. Don't worry about it. You chose your happiness. And that's a big thing. Happiness, love, all of those things are emotions, and you kind of choose to feel them. And that's a really big one. That's one that I've just started realizing and understanding through this podcast and through being educated by all of the amazing women that we get to interview. You get to kind of choose your own destiny. What did you say, Stephanie? You are the
I am the creator of my own destiny and I choose my happiness. And that's coming from somebody who, I mean, I think as you grow up sensitive, as they like to say, you start to realize that maybe that's a different form of something else, you know, whether it be depression, anxiety, OCD. In my case, I have obsessive compulsive disorder. And I find that in moments where it's like I feel like happiness is just so unattainable, it's learning how to be patient and kind to yourself even when you're not able to choose happiness in that moment. Like, we bring this up, I feel like it's just constantly me bringing this movie up, but Inside Out, where joy and sadness finally create a memory together. That's the key, because one emotion cannot be the driving force all the time. You will break. You need all of these other feelings to live within you. It's why it's like your chakra system. It can't just be one constantly driving. It can't sustain. They all have to live within a harmony with one another. And that's when you feel like that sense of oneness. But it's all these like tree branches that are working together.
So, because we've spoken about a little bit about what it is to be a woman today, so what does women empowerment mean to you?
So women empowerment to me is just knowing who you are. That's more what I'm feeling, is just like knowing who you are and standing strong in that, in your energy, in your essence, in everything about you, like owning that. Because I think so many people, and I've really actually noticed this myself this year, and how I've been triggered by a lot of people recently. And a huge part of it, I think, is just seeing people can do whatever they want to their bodies. And I'm not judging people for that, but just seeing people always having, especially women, always having, you know, their boobs done or their lips done or Botox or anything like that. And I have friends that have those things, and I'm absolutely not judging them for it. And people can do whatever they want. But I also want to question whether that is a decision based on confidence and wanting to feel more confident, or like what's the reasoning behind it. And I feel like there's just so many women who are just not confident. They don't know who they are. They've been living this identity of who they think that they are. They've been living this person, this life, but so many people just don't know who they are. They don't even know what they enjoy or what brings them happiness. It's crazy. And yeah, so just like owning who you are and knowing who you are and standing strong in that.
So what advice would you give your 15-year-old self?
It's so hard because I don't really actually know who I was at 15. I think just like do what you love, like follow your passions and do what you love, and don't care what other people think about you, and own who you are.
Well, Dana, thank you. This has been wonderful. And I know that Stephanie has her question, because we want people to know where to find you so that they can get inspired and empowered, and, you know, hopefully take that little bit of time for themselves to maybe heal themselves in whatever way that they need. So Steph, go ahead and ask your question.
Where can everybody find you? And do you have any fun or exciting projects coming up?
So you can find me on Instagram at the Wellness Gypsy, and also my website, which is just danamaternick.com. And I have information about Reiki healings and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm working on potentially doing like a virtual mini retreat type thing, but still kind of in the working phases. So that's something that could be something to get excited about.
Well, I know. Well, I'm excited already. So we'll keep everyone in the loop. All the applicable links will be below. And again, I try to say this to every guest. Time is, I feel, more precious than anything else. So thank you for sharing some of yours with us.
This was very calming, insightful. I feel like I just meditated for an hour, so that feels quite lovely. So thank you again, Dana. Thank you to all the listeners. And as always, we hope you sync up with us.